I'm glad you could join me today. I'm in the book of Joshua for our meditation today in chapter 5. If you followed these blogs, you know that Joshua is one of my favorite books of the Old Testament. It's one of the first books that I ever studied in depth after I became a believer in Christ. And it is a source of great encouragement and hope to my own soul. I hope it will be to yours. In chapter 5, there are a number of things that we could speak of, but I'm going to talk this morning about the idea of what happens in the very, very first verse. In chapter 5, verse 1, listen to what Joshua writes here. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Israel until they had crossed over, their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. Now, these Canaanite tribes, God had told all the way back 400 and some years before, he had told Abraham that his descendants were going to inhabit this particular land, but at that particular time, the iniquity of the Amorites was not yet full. You can read that in Genesis 15. And so 400 years passed. These people continue in their rebellion against the God of Israel. And it's time now. God has given up patience with them, and it's time now for his people to come in and occupy this land and bring the judgment that God had intended upon these people for their unbelief. Now, there were other people in the land that, in the midst of understanding and hearing that the God of Israel was leading Israel into this place, they put their faith in the God of Israel. We think in chapter 2 of Rahab. Later on in chapter 9, we're going to read of the Gibeonites, who also recognized that the God of Israel was the true and living God, and they were going to be wiped out unless they aligned themselves with him. But here in chapter 5, the Canaanite kings and the Amorite kings all instead raised themselves up in rebellion against the God of Israel. They feared the God of Israel, but that didn't cause them to submit to the God of Israel. Well, later on, one of Israel's greatest kings, Solomon, is going to write that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that's what these people did not embrace at that particular time. You know, they saw the boundary of the Jordan River as being a major thing that was going to give them a little bit extra time to prepare their defenses against the onslaught that was going to come in because of Israel. But then, all of a sudden, the waters of the Jordan part, Israel walks through, and they're on the west side of the Jordan River, and there's nothing between them and these Amorite kings. And of course, Jericho was the first place that they were going to go. And so it's fascinating to realize that these people, just like people in every age, including our day, when they see the majesty and the power of the God of Israel, instead of submitting to it, they raise themselves up and seek to reject it and seek to rebel against it. And that's exactly what happened here. But there were those who, instead of rejecting Israel and Israel's God, embraced Israel and Israel's God. As I said, Rahab and the Gibeonites are two of the principal ones that we see there, but there probably were others as well. So one of the things that we need to be conscious of is that just because people see the mighty power of God doesn't mean that they're going to submit to his authority over their lives. We have within us a spirit that is intentionally resistant. We want to do it our way. We want our way and nobody else's way, and we're not going to submit to the God of Israel. That's the attitude that many people have, unless, of course, their hearts have been transformed by the Spirit of God Himself. Later on in the New Testament, Jesus and Paul and others, actually Peter as well, would all mark the importance of that new birth, that transformed life that comes because of the new birth. That's the key. If you don't have that, then you're going to raise yourself up against the authority that God brings into your life. But if the new birth has happened, He says you can overcome this particular world and all of the rebellion that is in your soul, if you'll put your faith and your trust in Him. These Amorite kings didn't do that. There are lots of people around us today who don't do that, but I trust that you and I will. Father, we ask you to grant to us the grace we need. We know that the one who was born from above, John says, overcomes the world. And I pray that your grace would be poured out upon each person who hears this blog, and grant to us the trust in you and the grace to believe. In the name of Jesus, amen. God bless you. I hope you have a great day.